Welcome back everybody to Read, Rant, and Review. We are continuing with my Books for Boys sort of series that I'm doing with a book that's really not necessarily for boys or girls. This is a book for everyone. As you probably noticed in the title, it's The Giver by Lois Lowry. Hopefully that's how you pronounce her name. So a lot of you have probably already read this book because a lot of you were in high school. Or do they have you read it in middle school? I don't know. I don't know these things. When do schools usually have you read this book? Anyway, a lot of you have probably read it in school, which is good because I'm probably going to spoil some stuff in this review. I feel like you can't talk about this book without spoiling some stuff in it. So if you haven't read it, I'm going to say please go read it, because it's a good book, spoilers, and come back. Or if you have read it, cool, you'll probably get the most out of this review, and if you haven't read it and don't want to and just want to watch my review, that's cool too. I actually read it quite a little while ago, but I've been really busy, so I wrote down all my notes when I read it, and then I'm finally getting to my review, but obviously I don't have the book anymore, because I gave it back to the library, so I'm going to read the synopsis off of the internet. Jonas' world is perfect. Everything is under control. There is no war or pain. There are no choices. Every person is assigned to a role in the community. When Jonas turns 12, he is singled out to receive special training from the Giver. The Giver alone holds the memories of the true pain and pleasure of life. Now it is time for Jonas to receive the truth. There is no turning back. So the synopsis is pretty vague, but it kind of gets across what the book is about. Now before I talk about this book, I will of course have some critiques for it, because I always do, and I don't want any of you out there being like, well of course this is a thing, it's a book for kids. I am a firm believer that books are for everybody. I still read picture books. I love picture books. As an adult, you should read picture books, whether or not you have kids. The only books I would say that are probably not for everybody are like the easy readers that, teach you how to read. But if it's a book that's not trying to teach you to read, I believe that all books are for everybody. And so all books are open for a certain level of criticism. So, I was really nervous about The Giver because it is such a classic, and I find that oftentimes I will read something that is a classic and kind of hate it. In fact, I fail quite often to even make my way all the way through these classic books because I will just be like, I hate this, I'm gonna stop now. But I made it all the way through The Giver, not only because it's short, but because I really did like it. The world building in this book is amazing. The world that is created feels so complete. Because of so much of this book spent in building the world, and also the nature of the world that was created, most of the characters feel kind of one-dimensional. This isn't necessarily, though, unintentional on the author's part, as the characters may more represent things and aspects of people versus simply being characters. I don't know how I feel about this. A lot of books, can have a lot of a deeper philosophy and what is supposed to be going on in them. And I don't know if this is actually true of The Giver or if it's just trying to be an awesome story. But either way, the characters feel kind of shallow for whatever reason, and that makes me a little sad because characters are my favorite part of any book ever. I feel like this is a story about an idea instead of a story about characters. And if you like stories that are about ideas, you'll really dig this book, I think. Because this book is so short, it did feel rushed to me. I felt like the author could have taken her time more, which is bizarre from me, because I hate filler and I like everything to feel concise. And sometimes I was right on board with the sort of rapid-fire way that this book went along, and sometimes I was a little sad because I wish that certain things would have been stretched out more. So the world that was created is really interesting to me because even though we are supposed to find this town that Jonas, our main character, lives in to be bad, at the same time it is well crafted to be potentially good too. Like, there were things about this world that he was living in that he was, going to need to escape from that I thought were good, and I've listed them. Gender equality, top of my list. Males and females could have any job, whether you were male, whether you were female, it completely didn't matter in that world. Jonas's father is a caregiver for babies and small children, and is because he has like this underlying loving nature, and nobody says because you're a male that's the wrong thing to do. And his mom is like a scientist or an engineer, I forget which, and it's just like the gender of these people is never brought up. Anybody can do any job really, and except for of course having babies. You kind of have to have the women to have babies. But I love that, and it was never like shoved in your face gender equality is here. You just saw it, and it was really nice, and I would have liked to live in that world for that reason. The family structure that we are so used to nowadays is kind of thrown out the window, and I think for the better. Adoption is the norm. Nobody knows who their biological parents are, and it doesn't really matter. It's who raised you that matters. And as I have several friends who were adopted, I can tell you right now that that is what matters. I know so often in these books the kids are like, who am I? Who are my real parents? Where did I come from? And it's so nice to just kind of see this book have a world, even though this world is supposed to be evil, have a world where it's like, who popped you out of their vagina doesn't necessarily matter as much as the one who loves you and raises you through your life. In this world, there's no hunger, there's no injury, there's no poor, which is good. And there is care for all of the elderly. If you are elderly, it is no question that you will be taken to a place that is nice with people who care about you and care for you. What happens to them after that is where the book starts to go into, evil territory, but when they're being cared for, it's really nice to not have to worry, that when you become old that you're just going to be abandoned somewhere. You're going to be taken to a place where kind people will take excellent care of you. So all of those things I thought were part of a world that I would like to live in, and that's part of the idea I think that is explored in this book. Can we have those things without the inherent evil that comes with them? Because also in this society, the weak babies are killed, euthanized, and the elderly, when they get to a certain age, are euthanized, and people who question the system are euthanized. So on the one hand, you have a really great system that obviously is there for the well-being of the people, and at the same time that system is culling, the weak from the herd. So it's like, I like that this book kind of questions that. Can we have these wonderful things like gender equality and lots of adoption and care for the elderly without the evil? Okay, so let me talk to you about something that really hit me personally on an emotional level in this book. Jonas is going to the giver, who is the person who somehow has all the memories from their village's history all in his head, and he's the only one who's allowed to read books, and he's the only one who's allowed to know the past, really. And so he's the keeper of all the memories, so no one ever has to remember anything painful. And he is going to give all of this to Jonas, and he's happy to give all of his memories to Jonas because it's a pain to carry all those memories around. But as I was reading this, I felt like this weird, profound sadness for the giver, because I have a fear of losing my memory. Some women in my family have had that happen, where they, have dementia and they don't know who their family is and they don't have any memory of who you are, and that is so painful for everyone involved. And so one of my greatest fears in the world is losing my memory. And so when the giver was giving away his memories, it hit me on a weird emotional level because I was like, no, don't give those away. Why would you choose that? Why would you choose to not remember? And I really don't think that was anything that the author necessarily intended to hit any of those notes, but it hit him with me because I had that weird fear. So, good, I guess, for hitting me on another emotional level? Yay! I do really want to know, though, how the memory thing works because it's never explained. It's like this weird magic that goes on. But they live in a world that is pretty magic-free, so I was like, okay. I guess it feels like a lot of other things are explained in their world, and that one is not. And I was like, I really want to know how that works. Want to know. I also really want to know how the community was formed and why. Are they a cult? Were they a cult? Obviously, at the end of the book, we find out that he finds other people who are not living in the type of society that Jonas came from. You wonder, like, how did his community happen? And why? And what precipitated it? And how? How did they figure out this whole memory thing? And it's I wish there was more of that. I want a few of these things to be better explained. But on the whole, even without the explanations that I wanted, it was still a really good book about ideas, and it's a great book to make you think. Books should definitely make you think. I mean, you should definitely enjoy them too. They're for enjoyment. However, I don't think it's a perfect book. A lot of people have that nostalgia goggles when it comes to this book. I still really liked this book. I think I would read it again. And I just found out that it's part of a series. I had no idea. So I'll probably read more books in the series and maybe I'll get my explanations that way. Who knows? But in the meantime, if you haven't read The Giver, you should, because it's really good. And if you have read The Giver, you should read it again, because it's really good. Okay, I'm gonna end this review now. See you later, guys. Alright, so I lied. The review's not quite over. I'm sure some of you out there were waiting for me to talk about the movie. As of right now, I don't think the movie is out yet, although by the time this video comes out, it might be. But I honestly have no desire to see it. It looks to have very little in common with the book, which is an excellent book, and also a book about an idea which is extremely hard to translate onto film. I was with a friend in the theater when we saw the preview, and he had read the book in school, and he just looked at me and was like, that doesn't seem anything like the book that I remember. So I don't think that necessarily means it's going to be a bad movie, but I do think, looking at the preview, that it is probably going to be a bad movie, because it looks to be extremely average. It looks to be exactly like, you know, all of the other sort of dystopia movies that are out and coming out, and I think they missed a great opportunity to make a more subtle, thoughtful movie, but of course we wouldn't do that in this age of big, bombastic, post-apocalyptic kind of stories. So yeah, I'm probably not gonna go see it in the theaters. I might see it when it comes out on video, and I might review it then, but don't look for a movie review of it from me until then. I know, that was what you all were looking forward to. In the meantime, though, I suggest you just go enjoy The Giver, the book.